So welcome to the tape group today. Thank you so much for joining, and continuing with the next tape and the next subject, you could say. And the title of the video will be the Virgin Consciousness, and that's you can associate it with the purity and the innocence that is you, that is your consciousness. But it has nothing to do with your ideas about it, neither my ideas about it. So that is what we look at today, and it's a great tape to listen to. So we listen to the second half, and that we do that in a moment. And then there's some meditation that we will do. And see, Joel, in what we're looking at today, Joel brings us really back again to the basics of acceptance, of what he's actually teaching. If you want the fruitage of it, you will have to let these ideas become true for you in your experience. They are already true, but they need to become true in your experience. The thing is with learning, of course, like the learning of the world, that was a big job that you did. You've learned everything, all the things of humanity. You learned the laws of sickness. You learned the laws of medicine, the laws of finances, the laws of the social laws, you name it, whatever laws. Everything that's described and put into laws of human consciousness, you've learned all that. And that was a lot of work. That was difficult. And it's still difficult to keep them up, to keep them functioning. But here's Joel and Jesus basically inspiring us to become still and to rest. And not to adhere to the laws of man, but to the laws of the Spirit. And the laws of the Spirit has one great benefit, and that is it doesn't need to be learned. Now that's something else. So it's like you only have to release the laws that you believe to be true. And that's doable. That's not difficult, because you don't like these laws at all. You don't like the law of getting old and sick and die. You don't like the laws of human destiny, of loss, of losing the ones that you love. And all this, the whole non-personal, Joel talks about it, of course, as impersonal. The whole impersonal universal consciousness, as he uses that term very specifically, it's like it has no source. So it was learned. You did learn it through your parents, through your family, through your civilization that you live in, through your country, through your education, and all this. It was a tremendous lot of work, and it didn't seem to make anyone happy. And so, but we all supported each other in learning all these laws. If you don't learn them, you have a problem. If you don't learn these lessons, then you might die. Then you might get sick. Then you might do this. On and on and on. So that is something else. Like you spent so much time, and it was so difficult to learn these lessons. And now, in fact, you don't want them. You have learned them, but you don't want them. It doesn't do anything for you in the eternal sense of speaking. So this is what we're getting ourselves into. Now, what is there? What is the purity that is inherent in you? Where can you find that purity that's inherent in you, that is here right now, that you don't have to do anything for, that is already yours, that you don't have to earn, that you don't even have to ask for. You don't have to learn to get into that. No. So this is where we kick off today in everything that we're looking at, which is lovely, of course. Like that's a real basic, fundamental discovery of what Joel's actually teaching in the infinite way, and what Jesus is teaching in his sojourn here in time. So yeah, I think it's great to spend some time looking at that today, because it is in fact really liberating, and it's also bringing you into an understanding how this actually is. It is all not what you thought it was. It doesn't need to be understood, because if you can understand it within the limited frame of your reference, then you have made it into something that it is not. Like a virgin consciousness is pure and innocent. It is total in itself. It is what it is. It is not touched by anything. It is not changed by anything. It's purity itself. And that is your consciousness. So we're getting ourselves into that in the sense of we're coming closer to the experience of that, because it can be experienced right here, right now. And so we use the meditation that we use today for that specifically. So maybe that's a good idea to start with it and listen to the meditation being read and spending some time in stillness to see, like, where is that place where can I find the purity of my consciousness? Where is this that is eternal life? Where is that what I cannot lose? Where is that where it's freely given? What always is freely given, and what will be forever true. So knowing the truth will set you free. So the knowing is the active part. We're opening ourselves up to experience that, because it has to be in the knowing the truth, not in truth itself. Truth is already true, but now you have to get into direct experience of that. Father, I am here with Thee for only one purpose. I must know what Thou art, who Thou art, and where Thou art, and why Thou art. I must even find out if Thou art, attain some awareness, some consciousness that Thou dost exist, and that Thou dost really exist within me. I must find some way of linking up Thy Spirit with my individual life. I hunger and thirst to know Thee. I must tabernacle with Thee, commune with something within myself that is greater than my human self, something greater than my human capacity and my human goodness or human evil. Tabernacle with something in me that is divine. If there were not something divine in me or about me, I could not be alive. And I must know what this something is. O Lord, how long can I go on living without knowing Thy presence within me? How long can this go on? Am I to live here 70 years and 10, 20 or 30, and then at the end feel that I have contributed nothing to this world, nothing to Thy kingdom, nothing to Thy people? Why am I on earth? I am to live a wasted life with nothing to show for it at the end, but just a living? I would do Thy will if I but knew Thy will. I would live the spiritual life if I knew how to live it. Now here, in the inner sanctuary of my own being, cut off from the world, Father, reveal Thyself, reveal Thy will, Thy way, Thy kingdom. Reveal Thy purpose to me. All right, thank you so much for joining today in this short meditation. It's a great meditation to use, and the words will be available. I will find a way to express this in a different way too, because it's beautiful to repeat it or to stay with it for a moment. It's quite full. It is from Joel in the parenthesis in eternity. Chapter 36, and so you see here, this is like we always start over as a beginner, because if you're not in the direct experience of your God communication, it is like you're not in communication with anything. So that always feels like this is the very first start. I'm a beginner. I don't know. I don't know how to do this. Reveal yourself to me, because I don't know how to do this. Like, I need help with this. And this is good to remember. Like when you're not in a direct communication consciously, then you have to release some ideas. You have to let go of what you think is going on, or your descriptions, or your self-evaluations, so that you enter into your pure consciousness, where everything is quiet. This is what remains. The rest remains. And that is our practice. And Joel brings that today to us in some expressions that I've found in the Heart of Mysticism. See, another invitation to rest. I seek nothing but rests. It seeks nothing but rests. Can you imagine, Joel says, can you imagine spiritual man praying for anything? Can you imagine spiritual being needing anything? Can you imagine spiritual being seeking anywhere outside itself? So these are really fundamental good questions. Like, the spiritual man, can it pray for anything? Does it need anything? Does it seek for anything outside itself? No. I can't imagine that. Yeah, I can't imagine that spiritual man is doing that. Spiritual man realizes, I'm like, everything I could ask for is already given. I'm right here. God is communicating with me. I'm in the likeness of my Father, which created everything perfect. So there cannot be any need. There cannot be anything that you can ask for. In that sense, that's already given. It is like, it's amazing. You can't imagine how this is. You can't even imagine how God gives. Everything is provided for. Everything is already set in place. Like in my mansion are many rooms. Yeah? So it's like you have your place already. You have everything that you need. Everything is given. The only thing that you have to realize in that sense is that you're a spiritual man, and that has nothing to do with what you perceive here in your sojourn in time and space. Like, that has nothing to do with it, because everything is temporal. Everything is just there and it goes again. And suddenly something pops up and something is not right. Something is, it's like it's a world of duality. So there's good and there's bad. There's sick and there's poor, and there's lack and limitation. All of the characteristics are manifested here, but God doesn't know about it because God is one with you. God is one, is total, is absolutely whole. There's no part you can take away from what is whole, because then it wouldn't be whole anymore. So simply said, that is the rationale behind all of this. But that's also what is giving you. That is the reality of you, and that makes it so different. So whenever you appear to see something else, something is asked of you. We saw this last week too. Like, how do you respond to lack and limitation? What is your first response to lack and limitation? Rest. Not doing anything, not trying to solve the problem. No, rest and realize what it is that is occurring in this very present moment, with no relationship to the past or the future, with no relationship to the fear, or with any associative thinking that you can do about an occurrence in time and space based on your memory of what has happened before. Like, no, that's not going to give you any information. We're talking here about the virgin consciousness. It is the purity itself, it's the innocence that is you. It doesn't need anything. It was never guilty. It doesn't know about sin. It doesn't know about differences. It doesn't know about parts. No, it includes itself in with everything. And yeah, even here, if you don't distance yourself from your brother, you recognize you're one with him, and you would do anything for each other. But if you think there's a difference, then that becomes your world, and you start to act out the differences in order to maintain them. This is what you have learned, what we said in the beginning. This is what you have learned in becoming a human, man of earth. So you're not a man of earth. That is what Jesus is telling you, and Joel really tries to bring that to you in his expressions. Spiritual being knows that I and my Father are one, and that the place whereon I stand is holy ground, and that all things that the Father has are mine, because I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. Spiritual being knows that I and my Father are one, the place whereon I stand is holy ground, and that all things that the Father has are mine, because I am in the Father and the Father in me. Spiritual being knows the completedness of its spiritual nature, and seeks nothing, but rests, just rests, in the shadow of the Almighty, under His wings. That is all spiritual being ever does. It just rests. I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. I and the Father are one. All that the Father has is mine. Thank you, Father, for thy being, thy presence, thy grace. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. So it rests in the assurance, you can say. Like, this is another expression that's being used a lot. Now, the practice of resting is an active one, because it is a matter of remembering it. Now, how do you do that? You can ask, like, how do I rest in God? How do I rest in this knowledge that is mine? Well, it just needs your rest, and that is simple as that. Like, it just needs you to calm down, to slow down, and to take time to realize before you do anything, like, what is occurring in the situations that I find myself. They seem to be so urgent, and it's really distracting at this point. But I'm waiting. I'm going to be still first before I do anything, and then trust the guidance that is given to me. Because if I calm down my whole system, you could say, if I calm down my concepts about everything, if I calm down my associations with every occurrence, my old memories and all this, my habits of response, something else can occur. And that something else is going to be huge, because it is literally where salvation is. It is the place where you learn something new, of where something new is given, better said, because there's nothing to learn in this place of you as spiritual man. You as spiritual man are complete and whole. It doesn't need anything. There's no development of that. There's no learning that. So that's the good one to remember of today. It's like, as a human being, you try to learn everything. That's why the tendency that you have with what you read and hear is trying to understand and trying to learn what it says. While that is exactly in the way for you to have an experience of your connectedness with God, your wholeness, your completedness. How are you able to experience that if you already have limited yourself as an intellectual being on planet Earth that tries to wake up out of the dream that it's stuck in? This is very simple, but it can be that you're trying to do that, and you can stop that today. You don't have to continue that journey in that sense. So the release of the intellectual understanding is one that speeds up many of us, because it is not intellectual what's occurring. No, it is experiential, and it is naturally, or almost like organically, experiential. It will be so familiar to you, but really something that you have been looking for. That's why this is being brought up all the time. If you're not in a full-blown experience of that, you need to remember it. And in that sense, you need to rest and be still. In the moment that you are experiencing it, you get all the guidance. Then you know exactly what to do, or if you need to do anything at all. Because realizing this, coming into the experience of this, brings you also in your recognition of beingness. This is about resting in God. This is about beingness. You're present. That is literally the lighthouse in this world that you are. You are that lighthouse. If you recognize that, you literally shine your light into this world. That is given to you, and that shines through you. This is your Christ ministry. It fulfills. It extends. It naturally gives, because it has no objection in doing so. It doesn't have any ideas about it. It simply does it. It is an instrument of God. So we touched that last week too. I remember that. But this is a continuation. Now you see, this is a virgin consciousness that we talk about. It's immaculate. Your consciousness in God is immaculate. It was never touched. It never changed. It wasn't altered. It wasn't broken. No, it is always full-blown, whole. And this is your consciousness. This is your God mind, you could say. That is happening right now. That is your consciousness. So you say, like, well, I'm experiencing a lot of limitation, and I feel a lot of pain and all this. And then it is like, well, then what are you doing? It's like, you didn't do anything wrong. This way you believe yourself to be in was learned. And anything that is learned isn't true. Like, that cannot be true if it is learned. because God doesn't know about learning. God doesn't know about knowing. It's omnipresence. It's omniscient. It knows everything. It is what knowing is. It is what meaning is. It is what purpose is. So every time that you slide off into a deviation, you could say, of humanness, you start over and you recognize, I'm not in a God experience right now. I'm seeing myself as limited. I'm seeing myself as bereft of all kinds of things. Or I'm in so much pain. Or I see so much sickness. I see so much death. I need to get out of this. Reveal thyself, Father. Show me where you are. Show me. I want to be in my communication with you. I want to commune with you. I will be still an instant and let that come to me. That is what is given.
Just think, in some forms of metaphysical practice, when an individual calls for help, the first thing you try to do is to find out what the error is in them. Uncover it. Remove it. Our work is the opposite. Our work is the direct opposite. We never permit thought to dwell on any person's erroneous traits, character, nature, qualities. We immediately separate them by saying that's the carnal mind or mortal mind or the devil or universal belief. Whatever term we use, we instantly separate the seeming evil, the same as we would the disease. You wouldn't want to blame a person for having a cold or for having tuberculosis or having a cancer. You wouldn't want to blame them for it. They didn't do it intentionally. They didn't do it willfully. Well, no more did they have an evil disposition. No more did they have a miserliness. No more did they have coldness intentionally. Because if you get to know these people, you'll know that they know themselves what they're really lacking of the Christ and how much they want it. And so you will know that the greatest benefit you can ever be is to recognize no matter what trait of character, erroneous trait, negative trait, that you observe in anyone, be as quick to realize its impersonal nature, its impersonal source, as you would if it were an illness. Now just think. We've gone in the last few years through quite a few epidemics of flu. And if someone came to you for help with that, you couldn't possibly feel any sense of that they're to blame or they're responsible or that they did this themselves. You would instantly know. You couldn't help knowing that this is part of an epidemic and part of a universal belief that's going around. And so you would separate it. You would realize instantly this has nothing to do with you. This has to do with that universal belief that's going around. It's a medical belief, really, in two powers. And in doing this, you would start the healing in motion right away. The instant that you would impersonalize, instead of saying, well, now resentment gave you that cold, or irritation gave you that irritated skin, instead of those superstitious, and that's all they are, superstitions, instead of that, realize evil has no cause because God is the only cause. God is the only creative principle. Therefore, disease cannot have a cause. It cannot have a creative principle. It cannot have a spiritual source or ordination. Ah, yes, but we have said that spirit is all. Well, if spirit is all, then it has no ordination and it has no source, no cause. And in thus impersonalizing it and nothingizing it, that is your healing consciousness. That is your realization of oneness, one power. And in the realization of one power, nothing else has power, and you are beginning to heal right there. Right in the very instant that you can accept omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience, in that moment you are beginning to heal. In the moment that you can accept all evil as having its source in the universal belief in two powers, you're beginning to heal. The moment you stop personalizing sin, disease, and poverty, you are eradicating it. The very moment that you know that these do not have their source in God, you are dissolving them. Because they have only existence. They have existence only in the belief that there is a cause for them, a source, a law. You see, if anything has a law, it is indestructible. If H2O is water, then that's indestructible, and nobody can ever change it. H2O must always produce water. If 2 times 2 are 4, that's indestructible, and nobody can ever change it. There it is, 4, and that's the end of it. And there's no exception to prove the rule. Anything that has a law is indestructible and eternal. Therefore, disease can't have a law, because even medically it can be cured. So therefore, there is no law of disease. Disease has no foundation, except in a universal belief in two powers, and that can't be a law, and it can't be a power, because it isn't truth. There is no truth to two powers. There is no God to two powers. There is no law to two powers. Therefore, one with God is a majority. The moment you know this truth, the truth can make you free. The truth itself can never make anyone free. Ye must know the truth, for the truth to make you free. There were laws of automotive engineering. There were laws of aerodynamics. There were laws of telegraphy. Thousands of years ago, laws of radio, laws of television, thousands of years ago. They did nothing for anybody until those laws were known. Ye shall know these laws, and then you can hook them up. Then you can have the benefits. And so it is. These laws of spiritual healing have existed throughout all time. But they rose to their highest in the experience of Jesus Christ, who was so deeply illumined, so completely and consciously one with God, that he saw no obstructions, he saw no powers, he felt none, and he could say, what did hinder you? And any appearance or claim of power just dissolved in the presence of his consciousness. And there were mighty healing works by Mrs. Eddy and in Mrs. Eddy's day. Mighty healing works. Let no one ever deny that. The whole world is interested in spiritual healing today, and primarily because of what happened through her and her works and her students. And in the beginning, they perceived too that there was only one power. It was lost later. It always is lost afterward. And it's always lost the same way. It is lost through organizing. You see, if the infinite way isn't organized, you are an individual, and Your demonstration depends on your state of developed consciousness. And you've got a responsibility for yourself, which you can't pass on to me, or to a board of directors, or to a name called the Infinite Way. You've got principles that have been revealed to you, and you're told honestly and openly that they can only operate in proportion to your grasp of them. And so therefore, for all the rest of your days, you've got nobody to rely on or fall back on but yourself. You know you can have temporary help by turning to a practitioner or teacher, but you know that it's only temporary, and you know that it can't keep on forever. Well, you know, if it could, don't you know all the wealthy people would be hiring us and all the rest of you would have no chance? But this is something that can't be bought. You can't hire someone to live your life for you. There was a time when practitioners took cases, not cases, but patients, by the year. $20 a month, $30 a month, $40 a month. And the idea was that they woke up every morning and did your protective work. And they worked for your prosperity, and they took care of your business problems. All you had to do was get up and enjoy life. Well, it didn't work out very well, or it would have been internationally widespread by now. And don't ever believe that the wealthy can hire a practitioner to relieve them. They can only do what you can do. Find someone with some degree of illumination that can help out over the rough places, or in the beginning before you attain the rightness of your realization. That's why Jesus Christ was here, to prove to us that one can do it for multitudes. But he also revealed that if I go not away, the Comforter will not come to you. In other words, I can't do it forever. He wouldn't feed those people. Only twice he fed them, and the second time reluctantly. He thought he showed them the principle the first time, and that ought to be enough. But he did it the second time, but never a third time. And you see, according to our beliefs, we think he could have set up soup kitchens all over the Holy Land and just multiplied loaves and fishes all day long, and nobody again would ever have to work. But why didn't he do that? He didn't have the power to do it. So it is. The truth can't make you free. But ye shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. But ye must know it. And above all things, before the spiritual experience can come to you, you must have greater righteousness than the scribes and the Pharisees. You must stop indulging the belief that any person on this earth, of themselves, in and of themselves, are evil. You must understand that all evil has its foundation in an impersonal belief in two powers. You may call that belief the devil if you like, or you may call it the carnal mind, you may call it mortal mind, or you may call it universal belief, or an appearance. But when you are calling it something, realize in the self-same instant that because it isn't ordained of God, it is not power. Then you've completed your treatment. That is then the state of consciousness that can receive the Christ, because that is the pure or virgin state of consciousness. It hasn't two powers. It doesn't believe in the pain of the flesh, but neither does it believe in the pleasure of the flesh. It has neither pain nor pleasure. It has only God. It has only spiritual enlightenment and spiritual joy and spiritual health. It doesn't have good health and bad health. It is a completely virgin state of consciousness that has no health, just divine being. And so it is. When you are not a house divided against yourself, when you are not a consciousness divided against yourself, you're pure. The Christ can find entrance. And the Christ has a name. It always comes to you with the word, with the name I. It always comes and says, I am with you. I will never leave you. I will be with thee to the end of the world. I will go before thee and make mansions for you. I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. It always speaks to you from the center of your being with that word I. I am closer to you than your breathing, nearer than your hands and feet. I and my Father are one. Son, thou art ever with me. All that I have is thine. I am thy bread, I am thy meat, I am thy wine, I am thy resurrection. But you see, this can only come when you can look out and realize that every man or woman has the same spiritual virgin consciousness that you have, only they are not yet aware of it. They have not yet been instructed in it. In other words, you don't believe for a minute that a person could steal that knows that God is their supply. Why should they? They can't lack. They can't need anything. They've got everything everybody else has and a little more than most. The very moment they realize, here too is purity. Don't ever believe that God sends good or that God gives good. God is the only good. God doesn't send supply. God doesn't send manna from the sky. God doesn't send a raven carrying food. God is these. God is the very manna itself. That is why he said, do not seek what you shall eat or what you shall drink or wherewithal. Do not seek forms. Do not seek effects. Do not seek a form of good or an effect of good. You're trying to break off a little piece of God. Seek the kingdom of God itself. When you have it, it will appear as manna from the sky. It will appear as ravens bringing food. It will appear as good business. It will appear as wonderful ideas. It will appear as plots for stories. It will appear as any form necessary to your expression. But if you try to seek it, it will be like trying to seek a microphone. After you get it, you'll say, well, now what am I going to do with it? I haven't got the rest of the set. Well, let's have another prayer now for the rest of the set. Where do we get the rest of the set? Oh, but I have no electricity. Well, another prayer now for the electricity. And so we go over and over and over again. We want money, or we want a home, or we want companionship, but after we get it, we haven't got all the other things that make it complete. Whereas, if we have the one thing, the realization of God, all these things are added unto us. All of these other forms appear, and when we have one, we have all the rest. I remember one time when I was engaged in some very distressing thoughts, thinking about the supply that I didn't have and should have, when I was led by the Spirit itself to a book and told right where to open the very page. When I opened to that page, these were the words that stood out. You will have the consciousness of health to enjoy wealth, and the consciousness of wealth to enjoy health. And I was able to relax, because here it wasn't going to be halfway. The way I was thinking, it'd have been all right if I'd have had the supply, but I might have been awfully sick and not be able to enjoy it. But here divine wisdom knew better than I that it takes both health and wealth before you have much of a picture. But what it was trying to say to me, it wasn't really limiting itself just to health and wealth. It was trying to show me that you have to have wholeness, the consciousness of good. When you have the consciousness, you have the health to enjoy the wealth, you have the wealth to enjoy the health, and probably somebody to share it with. So it is then that instead of trying to bite off a little piece of God here and there, if we have the consciousness that is enough to know that if I have the grace of God, that's my sufficiency in all things. I don't have to ask for the grace of God to give me food or house or automobile. Just the grace of God alone. And this includes all things. And that's purity, you see. You have to be pure enough not to divide consciousness up into little bits of forms and want those. Keep consciousness intact and desire to live and move and have your being in God consciousness, and let that appear as form. Now, I said there are 3 ways of attaining this. And the first one is, of course, by divine illumination, which comes because we have previously been prepared for it. The second way is through the consciousness of one who is illumined. In other words, the guru system of the East is built on that. We have never known this in the West because we don't know the truth about consciousness. But I, if I be lifted up, can draw others up to my state of consciousness. In other words, a teacher who is illumined can lift his students or her students to their own state of illumination. It may be in some cases that the student will go higher than the teacher was. That also depends on their background. But the point is this, that wherever students have the opportunity to be in the consciousness or to be a part of the consciousness of an illumined teacher, be assured that they are being lifted up to some measure of that same attainment. Because there are so few of those teachers in the world, most of the world will have to come to it the third way. And that is through knowing the truth and practicing the truth. It is necessary to know, first of all, these 2 principles, as I have just given them to you, impersonalization and nothingization, meaning that the very moment any form of evil touches your consciousness, that you instantaneously realize this is no part of person, this is the universal belief in 2 powers. Then that you realize since that belief didn't come from God, it has no ordination, it has no law of God, no life of God, no substance of God, and it is a nothingness that you need not fear. Then rest in the assurance that God is omnipotence, omnipresence, and omniscience. The other helps toward attaining this virgin mind is learning the true nature of God, so that you do not waste time trying to influence God to do something, so that you do not try to beg or plead with God to do something, that you do not believe or accept the belief that God is withholding something. Get to know God as God really is. This actually forms one of the greatest, the largest life patterns in my experience. This coming to know God aright, coming to know God in a way of not holding a concept of God, not believing in a God that gives or withholds, not believing in a God that punishes or rewards, but coming to realize that God is the very soul of this life. God is the very principle of this existence. God is the very intelligence and the love. And God is just as much to me as God is to you. God is just as much to you as God is to me. For God is no respecter of persons. And if any one of us is having more of God's grace than another, it isn't because of God. It's because of our greater knowing the truth. God has never given more to one than to another. God has never given more to one race or religion than to another, for God is not giving anything to anybody. God is just being God. God is the creative principle of this universe. God is the maintaining and sustaining principle of this universe. And everyone who has ever headed, founded, revealed a great religion has revealed these self-same principles of the nature of God. What the students did with them afterward is quite pitiful. I don't have to tell you how extreme students can be in their twisting of a teacher's teaching. I need only tell you that a few months ago in class, there was a question on the table from a student who said, I have a letter from my friend who heard you in Chicago and heard you say that there is no God. Now, that's how a teaching can be twisted upside down. And then mistakes can happen too. I'll tell you one that happened this month in our November letter. Those of you who have copies of it can have a good laugh about it tonight. It says on page 8 that I and the Lord thy God will never leave thee. And then it's signed Joel. Now, I can well imagine somebody picking that up sometime and saying, oh, that's who he thinks he is. I can even imagine some very sweet, serious student saying, oh, you see, our teacher, he's right there on the right side of God. It happened in Jesus' day. It's happened in other days. It will happen again. Teachings never go down in their pure state. And the reason is, unless you accept the responsibility for your own demonstration, you'll be relying on something that I said in a book, and somebody may have done just a good job of misprinting as that, or misinterpreting. You yourself have to be responsible for understanding and demonstrating the principle. And then if someone comes along and tells you that Joel said that next Friday we are not going to have sunshine, you can say, I'll take God's word first. Yes, all of this deifying, personalizing, is responsible for the loss of religion and the organizing that makes us dependent on the religion, such as the Hebrews saying, oh, we are God's chosen people. Or the Roman Catholics who say, we have the only true God. Or the metaphysician who says, nobody but us can have our prayers answered. God only heals through metaphysicians. And sometimes even a particular school of metaphysics. Now, all this personalizing, All of this reliance on our group selves is what destroys religious teaching. Because every great revelator has revealed what God is, that God is, the nature of God, the function of God in the midst of you, closer to you than breathing. The kingdom of God is not up there in that holy mountain. It is not down in Jerusalem in that holy temple. The kingdom of God is neither low here nor low there. It is within you. And then somebody joins something and goes on a trek to Mecca. Or Mecca by some other name and believes they're doing something holy and pleasing God. The place whereon thou standest is holy ground, and I don't care if thou art in prison, or hell, or sin, or disease. The place whereon thou standest is holy ground, and your knowing this truth will transform the hell into heaven. It will transform the prison into an open door. I have seen that in my prison work, the amount of men who have walked out of prison after they began to know this truth. Oh yes, it is individual responsibility. No one is responsible for your life but you. Again, just as I brought to your attention the fact that everything that has form symbolizes the idea behind it. Or we might say, shows forth something of a real nature. So it is with us. Each one of us is an individual form which symbolizes reality, God. Each one of us is the showing forth of a particular facet of God. One may express it in one way and another in another, but we were all intended to show forth a spiritual facet in a spiritual way. Of course, we lost the way, and human beings are not showing forth God. They are not showing forth the glory of God, and you can see that when you see what they've done with their lives, when you see what they've done with their bodies. You can see that they're not showing forth God's glory. But once they are back on the spiritual path, once they begin to obey the Master, if you abide in this word, let this truth abide in you, you will bear fruit richly. You will begin to show forth God's glory, not your own, God's glory, and it will be infinite. It will be wonderful. Last night, I spoke of the three stages of our unfoldment. The stage in which we turn to God or truth for something for ourselves. The stage in which we begin to think of God and truth and some friend or relative. And the third stage in which we're beginning to forget ourselves and we are wanting to benefit the world. We are wanting to give this pearl that we have found to someone else or to the whole world at large. Well, just as it is with us individually, so it is collectively. And the world is now at that stage prophesied of old, which is the one before the kingdom of God comes on earth. We are now entering the age of love thy neighbor as thyself. If I were wholly dependent on newspapers and magazines and radio, I wouldn't believe this. unless it was spiritually revealed to me. But it is because I have been these many years traveling the world, and more especially the last 14, 15 years, and still more especially the last 8 years in which I've covered the whole world 9 times, not counting how many times across the continent, in which I've actually observed that aside from the Iron Curtain countries, the motivating force, the animating force in practically every government is that of trying to help some other nation. I would like to point out to you first that at the end of World War I, England, France, and the United States guaranteed that there would be a World War II. They caused it. I will make that statement to you openly. They caused it. They made it inevitable. They took the enemy after they had vanquished them and bound them hand and foot. Didn't allow them enough food to eat. Didn't allow them enough clothing. Didn't allow them enough coal. Didn't allow them enough iron. Didn't allow them even to have back their own country. And every time that a Republican form of government was formed that would help to change it, these 3 countries broke them down again so that they couldn't operate. And we made it necessary for a Hitler to rise. We compelled Germany to raise a Hitler, to tear Germany loose from the shackles that we had placed on her and were keeping on her. We are responsible for World War II. And I made a collection of books over a period of from 1921 to 1939 to prove to the world that it was causing a war. And I began that collection in 1921 to prove that these 3 countries were ensuring that a world war take place and not escape us. And be assured, it is true. Not only it is true, these 3 countries now know that it's true, and after the Second World War, they determined it shall not happen again. And they went into Germany, and they went into Japan, and they went into Austria, and they began to help them rebuild. They began to use the policy of forgiveness. You didn't know what you were doing, and maybe we were partly wrong. And now we're going to right these wrongs. We're going to help you get back on your feet. And from that day to this, every major nation on earth is setting aside money to help other nations. The United Nations sent into Burma one of America's great teachers to reorganize and build a whole educational system after the communists were thrown out. The communists wrecked their educational system, what little one they had, and the United Nations financed the whole rebuilding of their educational system through this great teacher. This same teacher, after 4 years in Burma, was sent to Liberia and has done the same job in Liberia that she did in Burma. And she has since retired, and she brought with it the Infinite Way because she was a student of the Infinite Way. That's how I know this history. Now, through the United Nations, through the contributions that the United States is individually making, and England and France, now through contributions that other nations are making, there isn't a place on this globe where love thy neighbor as thyself is not being demonstrated. Everywhere it is being demonstrated in national life. And these old national animosities are fast disappearing off the globe. All of these old animosities and hatreds and greeds and lusts are disappearing from the earth. They exist, oh yes, they exist in a few isolated spots where the nature of people is backward, where they are not yet up into the 20th century, where they haven't spiritually evolved. You'll find some very dark spots on the globe, but not many, and not of large enough capacity to undo that which all the rest of the great nations are doing, loving thy neighbor as thyself. They probably would feel a bit bashful if you were to tell them that that's what they're doing, putting a religious principle into practice. They would probably tell you they're just doing it from selfish motives. It isn't true. It isn't true. They are doing it because they have seen what happens when you don't do it. They have seen that you make your own enemies. They've seen that you arouse the antagonisms that are directed against you. And they have seen that you can prevent it. And that's the way the world is going now. And you will see, we have a few problems left. As they are eradicated, you will find that you are living, and your children are living, in an era of love thy neighbor as thyself. And this is the beginning of that virgin consciousness into which the Christ can come, because self is out. Selfishness is out. Bigotry is out. Bias is out. And what are you left with? A virgin consciousness of love into which the Christ can come. True, at first that consciousness is only on the human level, like the perfection of the scribes and the Pharisees. But even that is a foundation into which the Christ can manifest and reveal something far higher than physical health, far greater than physical wealth. It will reveal the fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man, and his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. First must come that love thy neighbor as thyself, period. And that is the age which is being ushered in now. That is the age in which we will rely not on men, but on God functioning as the consciousness of mankind. Well, it seems to me that we have reached the end of an evening. Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you so much for your joining today. We heard some new, I don't know if you heard it before, that Joel wrote books about the Second World War coming up, that it was inevitable that that was going to occur. That's interesting to hear. Now he is also referring to developments after the war, that there's more like loving your neighbor as yourself. But you see, there's still dark spots in the world, and you can say, like, yeah, those are revealing themselves too at this point. It's like they have not been faced yet, or they have not been recognized in order to disappear. Like there's still a discrepancy in spiritual development, and that can be so extreme in countries that the so-called dictators are holding on to their old ideas of an eye for an eye, and the actual people are already in the new covenant of loving your neighbor as yourself. So you see that is still going on in this world too. You can say like that is very actual at this point. And it comes up for a reason. Like this is always, even with your individual pain, it comes up for a reason. Not that that's a personal reason, but it is more like now it can be healed. It is brought into awareness. All the hidden places will be revealed. There's nothing to hide. And this will continue until all darkness has been shined away by the light that you bring in, by you extending yourself from what you have received from in your direct communication with God. So here it becomes an individual responsibility. Now Joel refers to the individual responsibility also in the idea of, you see that the trouble starts with the teaching when it becomes organized, like in the Christian Science that occur too. So there's an organization, then there's immediately a deviation, or it's like it becomes a religion, and this can never hold the purity of the teaching as an individual experience, because that's where it's all about. If I believe the institution, then I have to behave a certain way and respond a certain way according to the group rules that are there. And you see that always turns to dust in that sense. It's always very temporal then. And it's never gonna open up and expand into, in fact, transforming itself into a higher frequency of individual recognition. It simply doesn't happen that way. Now, so this is why I'm happy. I'm saying this because I'm happy that with the Infinite Way, at least, there are no Infinite Way centers. There's a bit of organization within the publisher, of course. Like you can become a member to listen to the tapes. You can become a member of this and that. You pay for it and you can listen to it. That's also a start of that. But anyway, the office does what it does. I'm very happy to present this to you in the purity of my own experience that literally only comes through me by being being imbued by truth, by being imbued with the teaching of given from Joel to us, and extending that to you, because literally I don't know what else to do with it but to give it away. And so here is the recognition for you too, is like you receive this. That is everything. In your way, you don't have to receive it as I say it or instruct it. And that is not what this is about. This is about your individual experience of it. That will change everything in your presence in this world too. And that's important. Like we're not going to make rules about how this has to work for everyone. No, this is an individual matter of receiving it for yourself. In that, you give it to everything and everyone. In that, it changes. In that, you bring heaven on earth. That's through you. That cannot go any other way. We cannot make a new world order by organizing it. No, this is perfectly organized. If you allow that for yourself, you will see. This is what Joel teaches too. He saw the developments by his own change in consciousness, by coming closer to his purity and letting that literally see everything in a new light. And then suddenly seeing it in seeing a new horizon, a new world. That is the power of this. Now everything can change because you bring that, you give that to this world as an extension of the true virgin consciousness that is within you. The Christ has entered into your ministry. That's the occurrence that is taking place. So thank you so much for joining today in the Heart of Mysticism, and looking forward to meeting you next week in the next episode, of course. So thank you for your presence and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much.